Here we are. It is Friday, August 9th, 2024. And of course, this is the weekly video. We do these every Friday, talk about auctions in the Chinese and Asian art world and sometimes European art and whatever's coming along. What's happening out there? Because there have been a few sales in the last week or two. The results right now for sales, July and August, are a little soft, a little spongy. And I think that there is a bit of overall, people don't like to talk about it, but I think there is sort of an overall bit of softening going on in what we would think of as the broad middle market of Chinese porcelain and Chinese and Asian art in general. Things that are, the bulk of the market, which is items that are under $10,000 or $15,000, even under $5,000, those kinds of things. I think there's a lot of material coming into the market right now, things that were bought 20, 30 years ago. Maybe a few more collections are being cleared out. Maybe focus is changing. Maybe world events is having an impact on it, because there's certainly a lot of that going on. High inflation, high interest rates, all the mess the U.S. has gotten itself into in the last few years, and so forth. So all of that, and what's going on in Europe, I think all of that impacts the art market in some way, especially for the typical collector. The top of the market is usually pretty bulletproof as far as pricing goes in many areas, or can remain quite resilient. We saw in 2008 and 9, they held some phenomenally successful sales in New York and London and Hong Kong and in Paris of great artwork, mainly because it was a good place to put money. It's a good store of value in difficult times, and maybe some of that will come back a bit as we go into 2025, depending on what happens in the world. World markets do affect the auction market. All right, and there is sort of a shortage right now of great material, even for the large auction houses. When I've talked about that in the past, it's obvious there's a shortage because they're focusing more and more and more on non-antique and non-art things, but objects that are traded and bought and sold for a lot of money. And I don't know what they're going to do, because the sneaker market, I've seen a lot of data on this craze that began 10 or so years ago on Nike sneakers selling for so much money. That market is decidedly softening and maybe collapsing. I'm not sure, but I saw some rather disturbing numbers for people that are interested in that part of buying and selling things that they're not going to be too happy about. There are warehouses full of unsold, overpaid for Nikes and Pumas and one type of sneaker and another. So I don't know what's going to happen there. And I suspect the same is going to happen with other manufactured brands that people have decided they want to collect over the last 10 or 15 years. So we'll see what happens there. But in the Asian art market, things are still pretty good. And I'm going to get into some of the sales that are coming up. One of the things I wanted to mention was if you're a Patreon user or you're a global member subscriber, you'll notice that this week these pages really filled up again. There's 4 pages here full of stuff on live auctioneers, and a lot of material flooded in the last 3 days. I heard a few sales were coming. They came, and we've uploaded them. And I'm going to talk about some of them because there's some good things turning up. But these are just samples of some of the pages of what's come up. And this is only about 10% of the page. So there's a lot of material coming along that we've been able to look at and check out. Some nice looking things, some interesting things. All right, so here we go. One of the things I wanted to talk about was this. This is a nice pair of these are going to be some nice things that are turning up in auctions that are going to be probably pretty viable, I think. This is a very attractive pair of 18th century covered jars. You've seen these before. These caught my eye though for one reason: the dark blue border on these. The way they did this, they're rather striking. The cobalt decoration on them is a bit heavier than you typically see. They've got that very typical Mandarin scene in the middle, of course, with the figures sitting around with landscapes of buildings in the background. And this pattern, of course, as most of you know, it came along in the 1770s, 1780s, and became almost like a stock pattern like we saw with Rose Mandarin later around 1810 to 20 and 30. This is sort of the forerunner of that. It's what it evolved into later, but this is what they looked like originally. And these are a nice looking pair of jars. They're very reasonably estimated at $1,000 to $2,000. They're 12.5 inches tall. They appear to be in pretty good shape. You want to get a condition report, but they've already got a couple of bids. They've got 20 people watching them, and I suspect they'll do okay. I suspect they're going to end up selling for probably $800 or $900 a piece, which is perfectly reasonable. Nice looking objects, especially for a mantle or to go on a large bookcase in a library or den or something like that. These are very, very attractive. And this sale's coming up on August 18th in about 10 days at Madison Square Gallery in New York City. All right, and they've got a few things. They've got a few nice things this time around. They have this. They've gotten some very nice silks. And here they've grouped up 4 of these roundels. Now, you may remember we've seen these roundels sell, and typically they sell them in pairs, or, front and back and that sort of thing. And here they've got 2 pairs. They're very, very similar. These look like nice old ones from what I'm seeing, because they do make copies of these, but these don't appear to be copies. And they're estimated very reasonably at, it sounds crazy. They're estimated at $8,000 to $12,000. They already have a bid of $1,600. But in recent sales, we've seen one of these sell. We saw some sales a few months ago, you may recall, where one of these dragon roundels sold for about $3,500, and another one sold for over $5,000 for one. So here's a group of 4. So I think they have a pretty good chance of making their estimate. These are very nice examples. These are early 19th century, late 18th century dragons. Nice colors still, no damage. I don't see, there may be minor pulls there and there, but I don't see anything that's going to be very discouraging to a buyer. You want to check those out. And then the next one over are a pair, 2 of these ascending dragons, because dragons are often depicted either coming up or going down out of the water, that sort of thing. And here they are ascending upward, nice looking on this very warm chocolate brown background. I like these. I think they're very attractive, and they're estimated at $6,000 to $8,000, or around, say, figure around $3,000 to $4,000 each, which is right in the wheelhouse of what they've been selling for lately. So you check that sale out again, August 18th. And then this is coming up. This is a pretty nice frame. This is coming up at Freeman Hindman's. There's a sale coming up on the 21st of August, and they have a gigantic frame, Chinese export frame, done during the 19th century, beautifully carved, nice detail. And if you've got a nice Chinese painting that you've been looking for someplace to mount it, this is it. Here's an example of the carving. Carving is very good. There is one little break right here, but I didn't see any real serious damage to this. This appears to be overall in good condition. And there are 2 more, I think, in this sale, 2 more frames, as I recall seeing. But these are very nicely done. The color is warm. The low relief carving is very, very good on it, but it's big. This is a big frame. It's the outside dimensions of it are 35 by 45 inches, so that's a nice big frame. And remember, when if you buy a frame, people say, well, what do you do with a frame if you buy it and it's not exactly the right size for the piece? It's not a hard thing to fix. All you do is get your framer to build a mat that fits the opening, and then they place the artwork in the center with a mat, and that's all you have to do. And you could put a painting in here that's only 12 inches by 12 inches if you wanted to, or you could put one in that almost fills it. Doesn't make any difference. A good framer could work that out for you pretty easily, and then just drop a piece of glass over it. But you've saved yourself a fortune. To buy a frame like this would probably cost you through a frame shop, would be several hundreds of dollars per foot. At least, and this is a nice antique example with good patina. The estimate is $1,200 to $1,500 with a $600 opening bid, and this is at Freeman Hindman's on August 21st. And they also have a very nice Art Deco Chinese carpet. I love this thing. This is beautiful. Love the ground color, sort of like a very deep, deep, deep apricot with a lightly done, very pastel-y flowers and so forth. And it's a directional carpet, which is always interesting on Chinese rugs. But notice the giant peony blossoms all over it. And it appears to be in very good condition. It was probably done sometime during the first quarter of the 20th century. But a lovely example. And if you're looking for a very colorful, pretty rug to put in a room, now it's a pretty good sized rug. It's what is it? It's 10 by 9 feet, so it's basically a room sized rug, but it would go great in a library, a den, or living room, that sort of thing. Very, very attractive. Estimated at $1,000 to $1,500. You want to check on the shipping for it because it depends on who they use. But sometimes the shipping on these can be a little heavy. All right, and then this is coming up. This is also at Freeman Hyman's. This is a very interesting plate. It's an early 19th century Chinese export plate. They speculate that it was either made for the French or the English market. It's a very unusual pattern. They didn't put a picture of the back in it. I'd love to see the back of this. It's a very, very interesting pattern. It looks a lot like neoclassical porcelain that was made in France, in particular, during the 1800s. To me, it looks like it was made for more likely for the French market than the English market. But that's a sort of an argument that you could have a debate with people. But the pattern is very, very unusual, highly unusual plate. The estimate is just $300 to $500. If you collect unusual patterns, unusual export plates, this is an unusual one. It's basically just a hair under 10 inches in diameter. It's 9 7/8 inches wide. But I think it's a nice piece. It appears to be in very good condition. And I don't see any damage to it. You want to get a condition report, of course, but that's a nice collector's plate. That's a nice collectible item. And then they have lots of things like this. These armorial services from the late 18th, early 19th century. This appears to be probably it looks like it's a pattern that would have been more likely to appear in the late 18th century. I like the basket weave, groundwork around the edge. The heraldic crest is in good shape. The crown is still intact. There's a cup and saucer, there's plates with it and so forth. Estimated at $1,000 to $2,000 for the lot, not just the platter, for the whole lot, $1,000 to $2,000, but $500 opening bid. In Hyman and Freeman, they typically don't have big reserves on things. I know from talking to people there, they really, really discourage people from dropping reserves on everything because it's as I've said many times, reserves are for cowards. If it isn't going to make your reserve, you think then you probably have too high an expectation, or an unrealistic expectation. High estimates and high reserves don't bring high prices. They never have. All right, and then over to this. This is one of my favorite things I found this week, and a lot of you who've been watching the videos for years know why. The horses. I love the Chinese depiction of horses, and these are wonderful planters. They're 19th century. They're not extremely old. But second half of the 19th century probably, or right around the middle of the 19th century. But they're wonderful. I love the horses. I love this purple horse. I've never seen that color. And they have rather nice lids and finials on them. They're using these sort of as cashpots or incense burners. Here they are. But very attractive. Willow trees and horses all the way around. I think they're great. The estimate is a little heavy, though, a little bit heavy. This is at Merrill's in Williston, Vermont. They've misdated them as 18th century, and that may be why the estimate is so high. I think they'll probably bring $3,000 to $5,000. I don't know if they'll get up 8 to 12, unless some people believe that they're 18th century. And I don't think they are. I don't think there's a chance of it. But they're very, very nice. They're 9 by 6 by 8 inches. They're good size. They have their bottoms. I think a more realistic price is probably going to be in the $4,000 to $5,500 range. But they're extremely attractive. These are beautiful, beautiful planters and very unusual. Again, sort of a collector's thing, if you will. And they'd be wonderful as incense burners. And they were originally made as platters, of course. And then you have this pair of paintings. I couldn't remember if I talked about these in the past. These are at a Marrow sale. Marrow's coming up on August 18th. They're done in Sarasota. And these have a very, very low estimate. And not a lot of information about them. They just call them Chinese gouaches. These were done around 1800, and these are these classic Chinese school or English school, depending on who you want to talk to, China school portraits that are paintings that they did on paper. These are not on pith. They are on either Watman paper or Chinese paper, but very meticulously painted. These are really lovely, and they're all framed up and ready to go. I think they're extremely attractive, and I think the estimate is extremely low. $500 to $700 for the pair, $200 starting price, and these are good size. The overall frame size is 28 by 23 inches, so they look like they're small pictures in the photographs. The way they did them, you think they're about this big. They're not. They're this big. These are good size paintings, and I think they'll do very well. I think they're great. I think they're two of the nicest ones I've seen. They appear to be in great condition, and they date to around 1800. Absolutely great. Very, very nice. I love this one because you can see some nice Chinese furniture in there. And over here they have a folding chair, one of these portable chairs set up, and he's sitting out in a very luxurious sort of jacket being tended to by his wife. Now there appears to be the winter because she's wearing mittens. And these houses, of course, were very drafty and cold in the winter. So often they were, you could find Chinese people fairly heavily dressed indoors. In this one, they're sitting sort of in an open area with a little sun coming in, probably the warmest, driest place in the house at that time of the year. So you want to check that out. And then over here to this, there's some nice paintings. I got to go back and remember who this is. Is this Amaro? This is also Amaro's. They have this nice 18th century painting of a woman, a sleeping woman. The frame is not that old, but it looks like an old frame, but a very, very tastefully done sort of a mat around it, done in silk. I think they're extremely attractive. The estimate is $800 to $1,200, which is perfectly fine. The watercolor on ink. Let's see, the paper size measures 33 by 10 inches, so it's pretty good size, fairly tall, almost 3 feet tall, but is 41 inches in length, including the frame. So that'll be something to look at. Again, this sale's on the 18th. And then there's this one. This is fun. This is a Food Dogs at Play. They dated it 17th to 18th century. I don't think it's 17th century. I think it's much more likely to be mid-18th century. But very, very nice. But I can't tell if this had been cut down from a larger painting. They often did that. This could have been a bigger painting because I don't see any seals or scripts on it. And usually there's something. But the Food Dogs are wonderful, and seeing Food Dogs in different depictions is always fun, especially the cubs with these very, very bushy tails. And this painting is estimated at $800 to $1,200. Also, again, a $400 opening bid, and the image size on these are 19.5 by 11.5 inches in width. Overall frame size 42 by 17. And then hopping along over into here, this is the sale that's coming up at Lelan Little. In 6 days, coming up next week, and there's some interesting things in here. One of them is this. This is an Amari dish. The sale is on the 16th of August, so if you're going to bid on it, get registered. They've got a bunch of very good armorial wares. I posted some of the information about that over on the Patreon side the other day, and they've all been added to the Global and Patreon pages. But this is one of them. This caught my eye because it was such a great display of people will look at this and say, is it Japanese or Chinese? This is Chinese, but it shows how closely a lot of the Japanese stuff was to the Chinese stuff, or the Chinese stuff was to the Japanese stuff during the 18th century. It's a very interesting example of the design lines were being shared, because at a glance, a lot of people would say that's Japanese Amari from the 18th century. It's not. This is Chinese. And there's that very, very deep blue, and they use these shaped large cartouches the same way you see them on 18th century Amari wares. The colors are about the same. The red is a little bit different in tone, but other than that, it's a very good kissing cousin. And it's be an interesting thing to buy for a collector. The estimate is they don't really give estimates. They just say let your heart guide you, because the estimate is $50 to $25,000. $50 to $25,000. They're dating this to the Kangxi period, and I can't disagree with them on that. And it measures 10.5 inches in diameter. It should bring 1,000 to 1,500 pretty comfortably. But if you buy armorial wares, this is for the Dutch market. This is a very, very attractive porcelain. And Japanese taste was, of course, heavily collected in the Netherlands at this time. So it's no surprise that the Chinese were also making things for that market in this style. But very, very attractive. Very, very nice looking porcelain. And then there's more. This is some more examples just to show you. There's this one. This is the quartering Woodhouse in Brook. Nice looking armorial dish. Looks to be in good condition. Maybe a couple of little bits of wear. You want to get a condition report on all of these, if there's been any restorations or anything. But a very attractive example, and estimated again at 50 to 25,000. So you can't go by that. But Sawyer Quartering Woodhouse in Brook. We've seen this plate before. I believe Stair Gallery. I think it was Stair. It might have been Stair. They seem to get a lot of armorial wares. Stair or somebody had one quite similar to this not long ago. And as I recall, it brought a couple of $1,000s. So we'll see where this one goes. All right, and then hopping along over to here, this is another jar that's coming up in the Lelan Little Sale. It's a Ming Dynasty jar, one of these lobe melon jars, and we've seen these a lot. There are a lot of these that were made. They're not rare in the form, but this one is very well decorated. This one has beautiful dark cobalt blue decoration and a very nice white body, and it looks to be in good condition. It's a bit better than most of the jars. You'll notice in here, when you look at the way the lotuses are done, the outlining internally before they go back and fill in the cobalt is very, very neatly done. Extremely neat for the period. There is some fritting up here around on the top. That's not chips. Those are bubbles that popped, like you see on old Wan Li pieces, you see on early, in particular, Kangxi pieces. It was an issue during the end of the Ming Dynasty into the Qing Dynasty, fritting on edges. But this has very pleasing color. The cobalt on this is a very, very nice color. I like this one a lot. I've had a lot of these over the years, but this is a really nice one. And I think it'll do pretty well. I suspect it will. I think it'll probably get up into the $1,500 range. Apparently, they have the photographs from the family who owned it, and or that was owned by a Japanese family. And also, this is coming in. This is interesting. If you missed the Howard book that sold, I think it sold a week or two ago. We talked about it, the Armorial book that sold, and it was only volume 1. It was just this one. It went for $450. Here you have volume 1 and volume 2. This looks like a later edition. This is the Heirloom and Howard example. The one on the left is the Heirloom and Howard published it, who was David Howard's business, and Faber published them also initially. So you can get volume 1 and 2 now, which is a great thing. Expect it to go for $800 to $1,000. But it's a very desirable book, especially if you're looking at Armorial wares. It's the Bible. And then over to this, a Kangxi period Dewa incense burner based on an early bronze form. This is a pretty rare type. It's got a couple of minor condition issues to it. I think there's a repair or hairline or something, but nothing too significant. But it's a very rare type. And Kangxi period. But what's real interesting is it comes from the collection of Thomas English Cody, the great nephew of Buffalo Bill Cody, which is sort of fun. And this should do pretty well. This is a rare bird. If you like Dewa and you collect Blanc de Chine and you like it from the Kangxi period, the earlier pieces, this would be a really good one to buy. And there's another one coming also after this. I think it's all from the same collection. A very rare lotus cup. With a turtle in the middle of it, but from the same collection. There it is, with a crab rather. And here's the cup. The photograph is a little hard to see everything because it's white against a white background, always a problem. But there's the crab in the bottom, and beautifully shaped. It's got the little stem still coming out of it. Wonderful example. Estimated at I don't know what it's estimated, $600 to $800 or something, but it's a great cup. If you like Blanc de Chine, you should want to buy this, and it will cost you probably somewhere between $800 and $1,200 minimum. But it's a very, very rare form. Both this and the previous one are rare forms, and those are always nice to buy. And also in the sale is this. It's very nice. And we don't show these often, but this is a legitimate one, Burmese marble Buddha. And this is a big one, and there's a bunch of things coming up that I'm going to show you today that would be perfect to put in your garden. I know people don't like to put antiques outside, but if you have a nice piece of marble, like we have marble lions in our yard, if you have a nice piece of marble, something that was made as garden statuary, use it in your garden. It really makes for a beautiful spot. And in the winter, you want to cover this up, though. I mean, you don't want to leave it out there all year round, or put it into an enclosed area or something. But these are great to put in a garden. And this is a very nice early 19th century Burmese marble statue. It's fairly large. It's a fairly large one. It measures 40 inches tall. So it's the Buddha, including the stand, 33 feet tall without the stand. So it's a good size one. You want to check on shipping, of course, because it's going to be heavy and fairly expensive to ship. But you might be able to get a deal from a freight company to go pick it up for you and get it crated and sent to you, or just drive down and pick the darn thing up. It'd be a little adventure. It's in Hillsborough, North Carolina. It's not that hard to get there if you're on the East Coast. It's right sort of in the mid-Atlantic. But this is a very nice thing. This is a beautiful example. It's got good age to it. It's got good surface on it. And it looks like it's in very, very nice condition. Still has the pigment in the hair, the blue lapis pigment in the hair above. There you go. But nicely carved, nicely polished, beautifully finished. There's still traces of gilding on the robes and so forth. The estimate on this is probably going to, well, if they were printed an estimate, I'd say probably $3,000 to $5,000, maybe $4,000 to $6,000, maybe more. If you get some Burmese Buddha buyers, they're going to go crazy for this thing. But it's a great example. And then over to this, they have several of these Japanese stone temple lanterns that you put outside. I've always loved these things. They're extremely pretty. They look great in a garden. This one measures 66 inches tall, so it's a little over 5 feet in height. They're very nicely done. Love the scrolled top on it, the double finial inside, and of course in the summer you can put a candle inside them and light them and use them as a garden illumination. A beautiful, beautiful thing. It should bring $3,000 or $4,000, but it's a very nice example. It probably dates to the sort of the 18th century, 1800s, early 1800s or late 1700s Edo period. And they also have this one. This is a knockout. It's a big monumental patented bronze outdoor dragon fountain. And you don't see these very often in America at all. Somebody had to bring this back. But the dragon on it, classic Japanese dragon, great big piece of metalwork, nice patina on it, beautiful patina. This has been outdoors for a long time, and I love the panels around the bottom with lotus blossoms. On each panel has a lotus blossom with a pod in the middle. Very, very attractive thing. And there's the dragon. They have let's see here, what does it have? Four clawed dragon. But very, very attractive. And again, something you could put in your yard and really, really enjoy it. And this is pretty good size. It's 39 inches tall and 42 inches wide. So it's 3.5 feet wide. It's a good size fountain. And what a thing to put in your yard. Buy some nice antiques for your yard. But I like this a lot. I like that a lot. And if you don't put it in your yard, if you have a big enough house, you could put a plant in it and or a small tree or something. All right, and then here's the other lantern. This one might be a little more interesting than the other one because it's got a Buddha at the bottom carved into the stone, but beautifully done. Again, very nice example. This one's fairly sleek looking, and it measures 55 inches in height, so it's just a little under 5 feet tall. And these should bring a couple of $1,000s a piece. You know, if you bought all the Japanese stuff, you could just go down there, bite the bullet, make a weekend of it, drive down and pick it all up. It would be great stuff to put in your yard. You'll never regret it. And then lastly is this, and these are coming up. Those are all the pieces that are going to be at Lelan Little. It's an interesting sale. You want to go check it out. There's a bunch of nice things in there. But this is coming up at Stair Gallery. Stair Gallery also posted a good auction this week, and it's this thing, and it's a pair of stone boost Fu Lion finials. Here they are. And I put this on the Patreon page yesterday because I just liked it so much. And these are fairly good size. Before I get talking about them, they're 28 inches tall. So these are not little tabletop things that are 10 inches tall. These are 2.5 feet tall each and carved. They appear to be probably either polished sandstone or marble. I can't tell. I've asked them to let me know what kind of stone it is because I'm curious because it could be either. They date most likely to the 17th century. I don't know if they even dated them. Did they even bother date? No, they didn't. But what's interesting was who they were bought from. They were bought from Michael Dunn. Michael Dunn, for years, was he was sort of the dealer's dealer. He dealt in great rarities. He put out a catalog for a number of years. He had an exceptional eye. He did a lot of important antique shows. He was a very close friend with Ross Levette, who's another great dealer who lives up in Maine. Levette's Antiques. He's been there. Ross has been in the business since the late 1960s, I think. He's been around forever. He's a very experienced dealer, and so was Michael Dunn. And Michael Dunn and people used to get him. He used to get into China and actually bring stuff home. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And then you have this beautiful pair of Fu Lions on stands that he sold. These are great. These are so great. And if you want to own a great sculpture, stone sculpture that's early, I would go for this. They appear to be 17th century, probably early Qing. from what I'm seeing. They could be older. If you scout around and look up, you might find some other examples. But here you have the male on the right with his paw. The female on the right with her paw on the cub, and then over here you have the one on the left. He's got his hand on the ball, which is the male. And they have this very nice, interesting blocks. These obviously were integrated into some sort of very lovely house at one time. And the estimate is silly low. It's $800 to $1,200 for both of them, and these are big. These should bring $5,000 to $7,000. They should, maybe more. They are absolutely wonderful. I love them, and if I like them enough that if Hudson, New York was a little closer, I'd place a bid on them and go get them myself. I think these are great. Look great in the yard. And then, and that's sort of it for what's going on. But one of the things I came across this week, getting back to something we talked about 2 weeks ago, you may recall we were talking about this jade. This was in the Revere auction that did very, very well. And we had a lot of inquiries about these through the identification service. And my feeling on them were that they were, without examining them in person, at least early to mid 19th century Qing, and very possibly 18th century. And I guess the people that went and looked at them decided they were 18th century because they ended up selling for $15,000 or so, $20,000. But I mentioned in the video that sometimes you will see contemporary jades carved almost identically to these, but a little bit different in color. Well, here is one. All right, now this one is very, very white, which when they're this white, you want to be suspicious. Because typically when they're this white, it's that ultra white jade that they're bringing out of China. But what I wanted you to focus on was the carving, because the carving on this is excellent. This is a modern jade. This is coming up in a sale. They're dating it as Qing. It's not. It's a modern jade. I forget who Haven is selling this. Irvington sales in Dublin, California, estimated at just $800 to $1,000. Of course, if these were a Qing pendant like this, it would have a pile of bidders on it, and it would have sold for $5,000 to $10,000. It sold for $500, which indicates it's not old. But look at the style of this, and then compare it to the style of that. They're absolute kissing cousins. This one is a softer tone. It's a softer, like a mutton fat nephrite, and this one is obviously that Heshan white jade that they're carving by the boatload these days. But notice the carving, the polish. The polish on it's very good, and this is why jades online are so hard to look at. So hard to look at. If Irvington knew the colors to give it, they could have very easily in Photoshop tinted this to look like a cousin of this one. Exactly. You can match these colors, and it would have been a real problem to identify. And that's sort of getting back to the concern about jades that we talked about a few weeks ago. And I just wanted to show that as an example of what to look out for. All right, now over here. Oh, this is coming up. This is Don Hong Oi. He was a 20th century photographer, but he did these amazing silver gelatin prints. This is coming up at Clar's in Oakland, California. And this painting, he died in 2004, and this photograph rather was probably done in the 1940s or 50s. I'm not sure when it was done actually, if it even says. It could have been done later too. He signed it on the lower right. But I love Chinese photographers because they have this amazing ability. This is a silver gelatin print. They have this amazing ability to make photographs that look like paintings. And this looks so much like a pen and ink drawing. There's two in this sale. And the wonderful part is that his photographs don't sell for a lot of money yet, but I'm going to predict they will. Because a lot of Chinese photographers have really taken off and are gaining a lot of traction. There was a very active Hong Kong photo club back at the turn of the last century, not this century, the last century, and they had some amazing photographers. I've had the opportunity to sell a lot of their works over the years. Some of them today bring thousands, but there's an avid group of collectors out there for these. This photograph measures 9 by 7 inches. It's a beautiful photograph. Absolutely beautiful Chinese photograph. Very, it captures early Chinese pen and ink drawing so beautifully. The three-dimensional, the fading into the mist and all that. And it shouldn't bring more than the estimate. These typically sell This has 7 bidders watching it, and they typically sell in the $400 to $650, $700 range. Not rarely do they go above that. So if you've ever wanted to own a really great black and white Chinese photo, the Claire's auction in Oakland, California, has 2 of them coming up on August 16th. So you may want to look into that. All right, and then popping along over to what was coming up on the newsletter page over on bid amount over here. There's a number of things, but it's a little quiet this week. I was kind of surprised, but I think there'll be more by the time we get to processing. I mean, I think we're going to have quite a few things to put up, I'm hoping. But this is the newsletter page, and the things from last week overall did pretty well. But I am noticing I have noticed, and I don't know if it's going to last, but the prices this summer seem even softer than they normally are in the summer. And I'm very interested to see which way the market is going for these. All of these were pieces that we put in there last week, and we've got a fresh crop to put in there this week. Plus, we'll keep in the things that haven't sold yet, so you can get to them quickly if you need to bid. And these are just some of the pieces that went through. So what's in? Okay, we'll go to this one. I don't know what happened. That other page didn't load. This nice pair of 18th century clobbered beaker vases done in this very interesting sort of soft lime green. But clobber wares have been of interest to people lately, and these are being offered by a seller over in the UK. Nice looking. You see a lot of clobberware over there. They just went up. They've got 7 days, 8 days to go. They should sell. How big are these? They're probably 9, 10 inches. Oh, they're small. These are neat. They have restorations, but they're fairly small. They're only about 5 inches tall each. So they should bring, with a little repair to them, they should bring, what should they bring? $100 to $150, somewhere around there, but very unusual color. If you like clobberwares, you'll notice that this green is not a color you often see as on any sort of scale on these. Sometimes you'll see it as a highlight on a flower or something, but not scaled up as the primary background color. Very nice. And then this is some nice 18th century Kangxi Amari teapots. Will be on there. There's quite a few of them, actually, I think. So if you're a teapot collector, you want to check it out. There's a couple that are very interesting make-do handles I saw. I'm going to put those in. I'm pretty sure I saved them. This one should bring, lately, teapots like this have been selling for between $300, $325, and $450. So if you want to expand your Kangxi teapot collection, there's your chance. And then over here to this Chinese Jardiniere, blue and white. This is from Rufe's. Roop Hayes. I never get his name right. He's in England. We cover him all the time. We look at his stuff all the time. Somebody knows how to pronounce it, let me know. But he's a very active seller. I love this platter. Very, very nicely done. I think it's a 19th century example, but it's done very much in the 18th century style. Very deep, dark cobalt decoration on it. But the interior of it and the foot here looks more like mid-19th century to me. It may not be when you get it. If you buy it and you get it home, you may find out this is an 18th century platter. But I think it is. And it's up to, what is it, up to $207. It closes in 7 days. This will do pretty well. It's good size. If you're looking for a big planter, did they put the dimensions in here? Yeah, it's about 10 inches in height. So it's a good sized little flower pot. So perfect for the inside of your house. It's not, because sometimes people look at these, they say, oh, they look like a cup. No, this is a planter. It's about this big. Nice looking. And the decoration on it is very, very good. Very much in the 18th century taste. Loved it. I love the ascending bugs on it. And then over to this, there's a nice little brush pot. If you've been looking to buy a brush pot, he also has this up. This is a legitimate one. It's a 19th century one, and it has this sort of flattened carving on the body, but the surface looks very good. Nice old surface on it. Nice patina. It does have a crack up the back. So if you're a condition freak on brush pots, I wouldn't buy it. But if you don't care about that and you just like something with very interesting carving, this is one of them. It has a very sort of rustic finish to it. I like it. And right now it's got 8 days to go. It's only up. It's got one bid at 99 cents, 1 pound, rather $1.26. But it'll get there at the end. Should bring 300 or 400 anyway. But it's a nice looking pot. And then along to this is interesting. Now this is a Lelan early Ming dynasty Jun type glazed bowl, and there's a lot of fakes of these around. You see them all the time. They turn up all over the place. We saw a few nice ones come through Bonhams a few months ago, and there was a nice one. I forget where the other ones were. And they're very, very attractive these days, it seems, in the market. And we'll blow this one up. This is nice. There's the front of it. It doesn't have a purple splash on it, which does affect the value, and it's got a glaze gap there. But the back of it looks absolutely fine. His photography is a little out of focus. There you go. It's got this sort of bluish glaze to it. It's not as green as this. That's the more, I think, more realistically the color, which makes it quite interesting, and maybe why they didn't put the purple splash into it. And they've dated it as Yuan. It could also be early Ming. But there's the back of it. And boy, that looks like a nice old one. That's a nice old piece of Junware. I think it's very, very attractive. It's got some pinholes. It's not perfect, but it's a pretty classic example. It's right now. It's got 1 day. It closes tomorrow. It's only up to $17. This should bring $700 to $1,000 all day long. So if you've been looking for one of these, this is one to buy. And you may have a shot at it, but leave a bid. Whatever you do, leave bids. This is my, everybody knows that's my mantra. For heaven's sakes, leave a bid, because you never know when something's going to slip through to you. And when in the past, I've talked about pieces that I've bought that have slipped through to me, and I just say, oh, I'll just leave a bid on it. You know, I probably won't get it, but I'll leave a bid. And then every once in a while, you turn around and you got something you really liked, but you didn't think would come within your price range or what you were willing to pay for it. And this is a nice bowl. So if you're looking for a piece of Junware, it'll be in the newsletter page this evening and for the rest of the week until it closes. And then there's this. It's very interesting, and this is Luxu Rare. They sell some good Chinese things from time to time, and this looks like a mid 17th century, 18th century, excuse me, Famille Rose dish. It's a little overlit, I think, because the colors are a bit darker in this picture than they are than in this picture here. It's a little washed out in the middle, so it's kind of hard to see. But when you pull down here, you see there's a lot of detail in this. Love the pink border. I like the green outer border. There's some very interesting color combinations on this. And there it is with some glancing light across. I don't know why they did that. Maybe to show off that it's got a little bit of orange peel on it and so forth. But nice looking dish. It's up to $83. It appears to be in good shape. Check the condition report on it. What does it say about condition? Not much, so I guess the condition's okay. It closes in 4 days. It closes on Wednesday next week. Should sell for $125 to $175, but it's a very nice plate to put in a cabinet. It's a beautiful example, and again, unusual and rare. It's sort of like that plate we looked at the beginning. I like things that are unusual. And then this is something, in case, I'm going to put this on the newsletter page, and if you go to look at it, she had listed this as vintage. And as most of you know, vintage means, you know, made sometime after the 1940s or 50s. This isn't. This is an early 19th century platter. Maybe she just mistakenly is using the word vintage rather than antique. But this is absolutely an old platter. It's in dark blue. She had several pieces uplisted as vintage, as a matter of fact. They'll all be on the newsletter page. But this is a very nice 1810 to 1830 platter. I'm just checking it for condition. It looks good everywhere. And here's the back of it. And those of you that collect these know that that's absolutely what the old backs look like. And this is what the fronts look like. A little bit of fritting on the edges and all that. It's got one bid at $40. It closes next Wednesday. It measures, because size matters a lot on these. Did they put it in? There you go, 14 by 11. So this platter should sell for, $125 to $175 pretty comfortably, maybe more. But it's a nice piece of Canton. It's a very, very nice example. It's on the upper edge of the quality of Canton wares before you clip over into Nanking and Fitzhugh. But it's very, very nice. And then this was something that sold last week. It's interesting. The Straits community stuff is still bringing a lot of money. I thought this was a very, very nice example. This closed when did this close? It closed 2 days ago. It closed 2 days ago. It was this very nice turquoise ground Famille Rose hot food pot. Very nice example. Rather striking colors, but the painting on it's a bit more precise than some Nonya Straits porcelain. Often it's kind of sloppy and messy, but very bright colors, so people still love it. And this one is was very finely painted. There's a picture of the bottom of it. It's got some glaze creeps over here, but this looks like a sort of a close to the mid to late 19th century example, 1880s, 1890s. beautifully done. And it sold for $2,733 US, or 2,150 pounds. And then this did fine. I think this, though, was a pretty good buy. This was a seated, probably, they dated it as late Ming. I think it's more likely early Qing, but splitting hairs, of a Buddha seated on a Fu lion. It measured 11 inches tall. It's sort of buried down there at the bottom. This was a really good buy. $1,285 for this. Looked absolutely fine. I didn't see any damage on it. The way the Fu Lion's head was done made me think it was more likely a Qing example, but I thought this was a very, very nice piece. And $1,285 with a good surface on it. Can't beat it. And then over here to this was that little Kangxi cup I mentioned last week. I mentioned it had a couple of hairlines in it, but it was a nice cup. It's a type, if you're a cup collector, this is one of the ones you probably want to own. It had a hairline in it and something else. Wasn't perfect. And it brought exactly what we thought it would bring. It brought $128 US, which is right in the range for these. If this were perfect, it had absolutely no hairlines in it, was in meticulous condition, probably would have brought around $350. But it wasn't, but it, again, makes it buyable. You don't have to go to you don't have to go bankrupt buying things if you find something you like and you want to add it to your collection, because not everybody can spend $300 or $400 or $500 or $1,000 every month or week on the internet buying antiques. So this is a good example of something you can get that's authentic, real, and interesting. All right, so hopefully with the prices doing what they're doing, I'm kind of hoping prices will sort of level off, maybe soften up a little, and open the way for not the speculators in the Chinese art market, but the collectors, the people that really want to own this stuff and build collections, will be able to do so a little bit more economically than they have been over the last few years, because the prices went so crazy, especially from around 2000 on, peaking out in 2013 and then sort of leveling off from then on forward with a few exceptions here and there. But I think maybe we're going to see a little bit of a downtrend in some prices coming up. It may not happen. The economy may, you can't make a prediction that's absolute, but I have the feeling that that's what's happening. I don't think it's going to fall apart by any stretch, but I think maybe there's going to be a little less, a few less dollars chasing everything around the block, and maybe some better buying opportunities for people who like to buy and own and keep things. And because the speculators have had a real hayride for the last 20 or so years. So I'm hoping that's simmering down. All right, that's it for the week. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. If you've joined the Patreon page, you saw the video, the extra video. We put an extra video up there every week on things that I've collected. I hope you enjoyed it. And we posted a couple of things on there and some of the upcoming auctions the other day that we covered today, and we'll put some more up over the weekend. So thank you for those subscriptions, and for the global member page subscriptors, of course. And somebody asked me this week if they could join Patreon. They already belong to the global pages. If you want, you can. It's an extra $1 a month, but you do get more content. If you want to stop subscribing to the global pages and join the Patreon pages, and you can't figure out how to do it, just send me an email. I'll do it for you. I'll take care of you on the global pages, and you can go over and sign up on Patreon. Because I've had a lot of people do that. A lot of people want to do that because they get access to the same stuff, but they get more content. They get the Antiques Gazette, and they get the extra video, and there's also a community board over there. You can put things up and have conversations and so forth. So it's kind of fun. It's like a little forum over there. All right, that's it for the week. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Things around here are fine. The dog was down at the beach the other day again. He's becoming quite a little swimmer, our new dog Buck. I'm going to try and catch him on video if I can. If I get a few minutes, I'll do some videotaping him and put him up here, and you can all see how he's grown a bit in the last month and a half, 2 months, and he's doing great. All right, have a wonderful weekend, and see you all next time. All right, bye-bye.